Right, this one is FPL player rankings where myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy make a top 10 list for 6 different categories. We've got budget defenders, budget mids, budget forwards, premium forwards. We're going to discuss our lists, so let's get straight into it. Okay, so defenders and budget defenders to start with. So a lot of the list looks the same, especially the guys at the top. Makes complete sense. The one thing that I'm noticing in your list, George, though, is a lot of Bournemouth. I mean, I've got Senesi, but you've got 2 other Bournemouth as well. Talk me through that.
Well, for me, with Truffert in particular, it's mainly the eye test. I think Truffert looks like a proper quality baller. But also, Bournemouth's fixtures aren't that scary. They haven't got one team I'm super scared of in their next 6. They've got Brighton, then they've got us, but it is at home, and we're Isaac-less. If any team's been struggling to score goals, it's been Newcastle. And then they've got Leeds, and then they got Fulham, and then they got Crystal Palace. So I think the fixtures are there. They've shown that, especially against a team who was looking like they could score against anyone in Spurs, managing to go in there and keep a clean sheet against Spurs. I think. Yeah, I actually quite like Bournemouth's defence. I think they've done really well. I think they've set up really well. So, I mean, that's why you see them there for me.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. I mean, I was surprised by that result against Spurs. Spurs have looked really good, and I thought that Bournemouth would just be rubbish to start this season, given that they lost most of their back 4. But
yeah, same.
That was a very decent clean sheet against Spurs. Senesi he's at the top of both of our lists, or very high up at least. He's got defensive contributions, loads of them. So big fan of him. Another one that, he's gone down your list, but Jed Spence. Doggy is back now. Obviously, Spence actually got the England call up, which is quite nice, but you still rate him?
So that's part of what I'm questioning. So if Tottenham hadn't lost to Bournemouth in the way they did, I would be a bit more confident that Spence just holds on to that. But now they have lost to Bournemouth, that perfect start, Tottenham were flying. Now there is just that little bit of an obstacle. Maybe this is the sort of time where Thomas Frank thinks, well, maybe I can change that. Maybe we can set up differently. Maybe we can try out Udogie back in the team. Maybe we can just try a few things out. So for me, that's why Spence slips down, because even though, he has got an England call up and that is great, I just think a result like that against Bournemouth, especially when you're coming off a win against City, just opens Thomas Frank's mind up to what could I change? Where could I change it? And like I've said before, I think Udogie is potentially the best footballer on the planet. He's got absolutely everything. There's just not much to, as a profile, Udogie is a fantastic footballer. So, I think that there's just that doubt about minutes, and that's why Spencer's down there for me.
Yeah, that's fair. We saw that actually Porro was the one that came off, but it did look like Porro did pick up some sort of knock potentially. I don't think it was serious, but he was limping or something like that. Besides that, our lists are relatively the same. Certainly at the top of it, you've got Tosin at the bottom.
Yeah. I have got one question. And please, for everyone who keeps doing this, what is the hype with Anderson? Please, I need it explained. Fulham's fixtures are not great. They've got Villa away, Arsenal, and Newcastle within their next 6. They haven't kept a single clean sheet yet. Please fill me in on Anderson, because I must be missing something.
Yeah, the fixtures aren't horrific. They're just average, probably. I'd say. Then they're not really bad. They're also just not really good. The thing with Anderson, nothing's really changed for me since the start of the season. In that, I think last season, Fulham's defence XG-wise was top 6 in the league. I'm pretty sure. They just massively underperformed that. Now, there is a world where they just keep underperforming that, obviously. I just think that will catch up at some point. Anderson is also very good for defensive contribution points. We haven't quite seen that crystallise like we maybe thought we would by now, but I still think long-term, he will be good for defensive contribution points. And I think the Fulham defence is a little bit underrated. That's the only reason he's there. But he's only going up the list because other players are coming down. For me, he's not getting better as such.
Yeah. But is it not a case of wanting Fulham to prove it first, or wanting Anderson to prove it first before we do? Because, obviously, Tottenham did have that slip up against Bournemouth, but given the fact that they've got West Ham, Wolves and Leeds within their next 5, to put, Van de Ven, someone like a Van de Ven below him. I just can't see a world where I'd ever look at Anderson and Van de Ven over the next 5 fixtures and be like, yeah, I want that Fulham defender who's got 3 red fixtures in his next 6 over, the Spurs defender who's got 3 greens in his next 6.
Yeah, Van de Ven just offers almost nothing else, though. Besides the clean sheet, Van de Ven offers very little. And also, I'd rather, if I'm seeing something in the numbers that I like, I'd rather get on something early than be late to the party or at the party at the same time as everyone else, basically. That's the only reason he's there for me. I mean, I don't have him in my team and I do have Van de Ven, so I guess I'm not really practicing what I preach as such, but that's because I started with Van de Ven and the fixtures are good. But that's the only reason, basically.
Yeah, I think that's it. For me, I just have to believe that Bournemouth result is kind of a hiccup more than anything. Spurs look good. The way they set up was good, so I still believe in Spurs defenders, and I won't be moving off them.
That's fair. And on to premium defenders now. So again, the top of our lists are pretty similar. I think the top 5 are actually the same, just in a very slightly different order. The one thing in your list that I'm particularly noticing is Nottingham Forest defenders. You've got Murillo at 10 and no one else.
Yeah. Well, I think, they've just signed a few left backs, so I'm a little bit more nervy about Nico Williams' minutes. So that's the reason that he's dropped out. But then I also think at the back end of their fixtures aren't amazing for a team which, just caught a bit of a hiding as well. They've got Arsenal next, and then they've got Newcastle and Chelsea within their next 5. So the fixtures they're definitely a bit of a mixed bag. And I think, it's one thing, losing a scrappy sort of, 1-0 to a team, but it's another thing getting absolutely hammered the way they did. So, I think it's just a little bit of caution there. And, that's where they're different to Spurs in that, Spurs did lose, but Spurs still looked decent. Nottingham Forest took a bit of a thrashing from a pretty bad team. No offense.
Well, bad team. I mean, come on, let's stop that. No, granted, we have looked terrible, and then we did just randomly kind of put in an unbelievable performance. So it's fair.
So yeah, that's basically all it is. That's where I'm at with Nottingham Forest. Like it was. There's certain results which I can look past. Or certain results do spook me, and that definitely. From an owner of Forest defenders, that definitely falls into the spook column. So that's why you see them fall down my list.
Yeah, but Burnley away, Sunderland at home. There's not a better stretch of 2 fixtures than that. Granted, there's obviously Arsenal beforehand and Newcastle straight after, but I don't know. Those 2 fixtures are too good to ignore for me, I think. Yeah,
I know 100%. I absolutely wouldn't sell them, especially while those fixtures are there. But I would be cautious about buying them now because either side of that pair, they've got Arsenal and Newcastle and then Chelsea. So you would essentially just be buying these players for that 2-game stretch right in the middle of then. And then, if you're not transferring them out for that Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth stretch, then, you can't expect a huge amount of points during that time. So definitely if you have them, hold them for Burnley, Sunderland. But I would be really cautious about buying them, especially, losing in that fashion is, there is a bit of reason to be concerned there.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we did kind of change system a bit. We went to a 4 at the back, but yeah, Forest looked good before that game, and in that game looked pretty terrible. So it was a bit of a weird one. Other than that, I mean, you've got Munoz top, and I've got him 3rd. I think that we're both pretty high on Munoz and Palace in general. I mean, Lacroix's in there. We had Richards, we had Gahey. Besides
I do just want to touch briefly on Munoz. So, I mean, there are whispers sort of in Palace Twitter that, with Sarr being out, Munoz might actually take up a lot more attacking responsibility. And, as if the guy couldn't get more attacking. I think, some of the things we might be hearing about where he'll be playing on the pitch, just how attacking he'll be, it's even more reason to be excited about him. And that's why you see him at the top of the list, not least because they also have Sunderland, then West Ham and Everton and Bournemouth within 4 of their next 5. So the fixtures are there, his position is there, the profile's there. Absolutely nothing to dislike about Munoz. Yeah, he's kind of good regardless, even if that position doesn't really change. But yeah, we saw
when Sarr went off. I think it was when Sarr went off anyway, that Klein came on at right wing back and then he moved into this kind of right 10. Whether that is a long-term thing, who knows, given they've got new signings. But even if, like I say, that isn't a thing, I don't think that really matters. He's just absolutely fantastic in his normal position at that price with those fixtures. So, no-brainer, really.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that sums up the premium defenders and the defenders. So we'll be back for mids. Right, before we get into the midfielders, I just want to talk about ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description to the video. All sorts of cool stuff on there. They have got articles from various different people within the FPL community on captains, differentials, fixtures to target, all that good stuff. They've also got the player rankings that we're talking about today. They've got cool quizzes on football and FPL. And then they've got the transfer wizard, which is a cool feature. You basically put in what position you need, you put in what funds you've got to spend, and it will give you a ranked list of players to consider. So do make sure you check that out. It's ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description to the video. Anyway, let's get on to the midfielders now. Okay, and we're back with midfielders. There's a couple of big differences here. So firstly, I've got Reinders top of my list, and Reinders is midway down yours. So what's the reason behind that?
I'm still just a bit unconvinced, if I'm being honest. He obviously had an excellent sort of first game, but as far as, relying on returns go, that Spurs game, he had an XGI of 0.08. And then the Brighton game, an XGI of 0.14. These aren't, compared to some of the other players in this list, it's not even marginally the same level. And I think, on top of that, that's 2 losses on the bounce for City, where they've only scored, they're just not scoring goals. They're just not scoring goals. They've scored 1 goal in their last 2 games. So, it's hardly like they're eating volume-wise. I just need City to turn it around before I buy back into Reinders. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair.
I think they're just suffering from an attacking volume and an attacking output problem at the moment, and he just can't be at the top for that reason.
Fair. I mean, for me, he's only gone up my list because Sarr is obviously out. He was second last week. He's first this week. For me, going from pre-season to now, only positive things have changed for Reinders, in that the one thing we were worried about was minutes pre-season. He's got 3 90s in a row. That looks absolutely fantastic. He's also, Foden seems to be out with a bit of a weird injury. Shirky's out. Like, the players that could play in his position, Gundogan's left. He's just got less competition for minutes, and he's played loads of minutes. So for me, I just don't really see a better mid at this price right now. The fixtures aren't exactly the best, don't get me wrong. Like, United at home this week is okay. Arsenal away is obviously pretty terrible, but then it's Burnley at home. So I don't know. For me, there's only real positives here. I mean, yes, City aren't scoring loads of goals, but I just don't really back that to carry on, I guess.
Yeah, and the City, we know it probably shouldn't carry on. In theory, it wouldn't. They should just turn up any week now and start putting 6 or 7 past people, like they looked on the first game of the season. But there's just something about the way the last 2 games have gone. There just seems to be something actually missing. They just haven't really been at the races. And I think if you're at the minute, City, to go back to our pie analogy that we used quite a lot last year, at the moment the pie at City is just a bit too small. And if someone is going to feature as part of that pie, it's probably, going to be your Haalands, or, there's other players ahead of him in the likely to return pecking order. So I think if your pie is small and you're low down the pecking order, I mean, he's still being number 5 on the list is the positive thing. The start of the season, he probably would have started way lower than that, but because of his minutes, as you say, he is finding himself in the middle of the table. I just think some of the guys ahead of him are just much more direct. They occupy much more attacking sections of the pitch, and that's all it is for me with Reinders.
Fair, yeah. The only other real player I wanted to touch on from your list is that Anderson's at number 9. I mean, you mentioned that Forest, you're slightly lower on Forest now than you were, but for me, he's still, I mean, he was 1 defensive contribution off of hitting the points every single game so far, which is unlucky. But yeah, talk me through that.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely got unlucky in those. For me, again, it's just it's what I was alluding to earlier. It's kind of a fixtures play. The Arsenal, the Newcastle, and Chelsea within their next 5. He would be probably near a Reinders if they hadn't just took that 3-0 battering to West Ham. Because, like I said before, there's some results that do spook, some results that don't spook. And, if you're going into a fixture period of 5 games with Arsenal, Newcastle and Chelsea, and you're coming off a 3-0 win for West Ham, it's just, the outlook is just not that optimistic. So, that's why Anderson slipped a bit for me. Again, still on the list because, defensive contribution is potentially there, but, I'm not that optimistic about him picking up even, the occasional clean sheet point. But yeah, I still think there could be goals. I still think Forest, could definitely get goals in those fixtures, particularly against us and Chelsea. But yeah, defensively, I'm just a bit more concerned.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I don't feel that great about him, given that obviously Forest will be playing European football soon.
Yeah,
and they've bought very well in that they've got quite a lot of depth now in most positions, especially in centre mid as well. They've got Douglas Luiz in now, so it'll be interesting to see where and when that rotation comes. Even if that's just like an earlier sub. Even if Anderson starts every game, if it's an earlier sub, that gives him less chance to hit defensive contributions. With the type of player he is, he probably does need 90 minutes to be a really good option. Otherwise, probably not. Like someone like Kudos, in 70 minutes, he's still fine. We're not buying him for defensive contributions.
Yeah.
Whereas Anderson, we are, and we want 90 minutes for that probably.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's another thing that, is naturally going to concern owners. And also completely off anything analytical, the fact that he has come one away and hasn't got it in multiple games in a row is just a bad omen. So for all those who believe in any sort of signs or symbols, there you go. So that's the FPL gods telling you to move off.
Yeah, exactly. Probably nowhere else to go with budget mids.
Yeah.
So onto premium mids, and a lot of this list is the same, both sides. To be honest, there's 2 big differences here. The obvious one is Florian Wirtz. He is 5th in my list still, and he is bottom of your list, although it's actually come up into number 10.
Yeah.
So let's get into this.
Let me at him. In a team that is scoring that many goals and playing that well, it's really hard to still look bad. Genuinely, honestly, you could get I can think of plenty of average Premier League centre mids, and you could stick them in that Liverpool team, and they could look good. To look bad when everything else around you looks incredible, or looks like it's going, is a real talent, and it's a testament to. It's a testament to how underprepared and underpaced he is for these games. So yeah, I will continue my hate campaign. There's absolutely no bitterness as a Newcastle fan towards Liverpool players. So, but no, genuinely, he just still looks a bit off the pace. He had a much better second half.
Yeah.
I will say that he had a much improved second half. There were bits to like there, but when you spend that much money, and even in FPL, I mean, at this point, he looks more expensive than he does cheap. So, I think there just are better uses for your funds at these levels. Yes, he will get the starts, and yes, he will be in and around it. But the fact we haven't seen more from him, or the fact he hasn't looked really good when everyone else around him looks really good, is just a bit concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really disagree with much you said. Although, in that second half, then he did show some kind of promise, and he showed what we thought we were going to get, maybe. But so the reason that I still like him is, one, because of the fixtures. Burnley away, Everton at home is as good as it gets, in that statistically they've been the 2 worst defences this season. They've conceded the most shots, they've conceded the most XG. They have been the worst 2 defences. So that's one thing. The second thing for me is that with Isak coming in, it's difficult to see where all of these players fit. I mean, Salah starts on the right regardless. Then Isak, probably not against Burnley, but going forward, Isak starts up front. I don't think that's up for debate. So then it's Ekatike, Gakpo. Both of those, I think, are probably playing for a spot on the left. I don't see a world where there's a way that Wirtz doesn't start though, regardless, even if he's not playing particularly well or his best stuff. Yes, Szoboszlai could go in there maybe, but I think actually out of the people like Ekatike, Gakpo, Wirtz is actually more likely to start as well. So they're kind of the reasons that I still like him. Mainly the fixtures, but also that I think he gets the minutes.
Yeah, and I agree. I think he is definitely the favourite to start and should be the favourite to start. But I think it's really dangerous playing badly in a Liverpool team that is that loaded with talent. Because a few more games in a row, and he'd force himself a few more bad games in a row. He'd force himself onto the bench, and Liverpool could easily play like a Szoboszlai there, who's after his free kick, he's everyone's favourite at the moment. They could easily tuck a Gakpo in there. They might even try and play Isak and Ekatike at the same time, and play them off each other and sacrifice that sort of 10 position that Wirtz likes to play. I mean, these are just all, I've heard every sort of position and lineup speculated by Liverpool fans on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I just think they do have the options to be able to not play Wirtz. I think if he continues bad performances, I think they're not short of players or formations where he could definitely be dropped.
Yeah, I kind of think they are. I don't. The only situation I can see is Szoboszlai playing in there with two other defenders, two midfielders behind him. Anything else I think is ugly and I hate it. I don't like a two up top thing. I don't think that's going to work. And the only thing is you're losing Szoboszlai in that middle of centre midfield, or he was at right back and brilliant, but that's not long term. You're losing him in the centre of centre midfield, which I don't think Liverpool are going to. I just can't see a world where Wirtz doesn't play, which is why I like him mainly.
Fair, but that's probably a main split of us then.
Yeah. But that sums up all the premium midfielders and the midfielders. So we'll move on to forwards now. Okay, on to forwards now, and the budget forwards. I mean, this is a real tough list. Actually, making this list was very, very difficult because any real value in here is just few and far between. The two players that we probably should touch on though. So, firstly, Callum Wilson was absolutely fantastic when he came on for West Ham the other day. Him and Somerville just made everything good happen. Essentially, I mean, neither of us have got him particularly high for multiple reasons.
Oh yeah, he'll get injured next week. So
yeah, exactly that. He'll either get injured or just won't start, whatever it is. But he is someone to maybe keep an eye on, let's say that. Then we've got Richarlison. So obviously Spurs signed Kolo Muani. So what are you thinking is the kind of deal with the forward slot now at Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete toss-up. I personally wouldn't touch any of them with a barge pole for that exact reason. I even think, just because Richarlison gets the next start does not mean he's guaranteed. If Solanke gets the next start does not mean he's guaranteed. And if Kolo Muani gets the start, it doesn't mean he's guaranteed. I think those three will be, at least for the foreseeable future, rotated a decent amount. I will be surprised.
Solanke is out, I believe, for quite a long time.
Yeah. Oh, is he now out for a while?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was back to fitness as he got injured.
No, he then got injured again. So he's out for a while.
Okay, yeah. Well, what I will see from Richarlison and Kolo Muani, I mean, again, it will be the same sort of stuff. I think you don't sign a player like Kolo Muani or a player of his profile to ride the bench for Richarlison. You just don't. But also at the same time, Spurs, I mean, bit of a hiccup against Bournemouth. They were playing well. Richarlison himself was playing well. So it's really hard to see that just not being a minute split, at least initially until, we see one of them take the reins or Frank settle on something he likes. But initially, I wouldn't go near either of them. Yeah,
I agree, to be honest. I think that they will probably share minutes. I think that I'd be surprised if Richarlison isn't fine for a start in game week 4. But so if you own him, I don't think he's an immediate sell. But I think you need to have a plan to get rid at some point because there will be minutes shared. Anyway, that's probably enough on the budget forwards because it's just an absolute mess. So onto the premium forwards. And one place in particular I want to touch on here is Voltemada. That's probably not how you say his name. But as a Newcastle fan, You have him in your list. You don't have Visser in your list. So talk me through what is going to go on at Newcastle.
So I think what we see initially, also, we did sign Voltemada slightly sooner than Visser, so he's had a bit more time to come up to speed. And also, he has been playing more football because, Visser was holding himself out. He's also got way less match fitness than Voltemada. So I think initially, you will see Voltemada probably get that start. Now, based on the sort of profile, it's been so glaring for Newcastle the last couple of games that we've really been missing, big target striker. And I think, once we signed Voltemada for the sort of fee that we did as well, it's going to be really hard to justify not starting him in the first game. I mean, we've been absolutely crying out for exactly that. The money spent, the way more up to match fitness than Visser. I just think he gets the nod initially.
Yeah, that's fair, to be honest. I kind of agree with what you're saying. I mean, the only thing with Visser is that we know he's kind of Prem proven, I guess.
Yeah.
And this is worth talking about, given that the next fixture is Wolves at home. Wolves' defence is bad, or has been bad this season. So it actually is worth talking and thinking about this.
100%.
So, yeah, I don't hate him as an option. He's just not going to make my list until we see a start. But I don't mind him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, completely fair. I think it's going to be also, not even just on a sort of footballing match fitness practicality level. I think it's going to be really hard for Eddie Howe to, hold back Voltemada from the fans on that sort of level. We've been dealing with this Isak stuff for so long. Voltemada is very clearly the Isak replacement, not Visser. So, I think, the fans, there's just going to be so much demand for Voltemada to get that start that it's going to be really hard, almost on an emotional level as well, for Howe to not plug him straight in.
Yeah, that's fair, to be honest. And I think, like you said earlier, that in the first couple of weeks, Gordon looks really good. Well, Gordon was getting a lot of chances anyway.
Yeah.
So, and the team was playing quite well around him. So, like you said, it's kind of crying out for a forward.
Oh, yeah. Our build-up play is one of the best in the league. We looked absolutely fantastic at winning possession, moving the ball up the pitch, getting into that final third. We look genuinely as good as any team in the league does. Even against Leeds, our progression of the ball up the pitch from winning it in our own half is fantastic. There's just no one at the end of it, and that's evidenced by the fact that Gordon has the most shots in the league. Last week he was top of the charts for shots in the league. So the chances will absolutely be there, and that's why I've got Voltemada going straight into my list, because the service that you get from your Brunos and your Tonales, and even your players like Jacob Murphy's, whose entire sort of profile is just feeding into the striker. That's part of why is Isak really gonna produce the same without Jacob Murphy there? Who knows?
Okay, we'll have to wait and see on that one. God. Yeah. So the only other real talking point or difference is Gyökeres, probably.
Yeah.
Gyökeres has gone to number 2 for me, sitting at 5 for you now.
Yeah.
The reason that he's 2 for me, we touched on it last week, really, but I just think that if you're playing with Havertz out, that means he's now pretty much playing 90 minutes or close to 90 minutes every game. With Saka out, and Saka maybe didn't need to be out for this to be true, but he's also on penalties. If you're 9 million on penalties, getting loads of minutes for Arsenal, then you are a very, very good fantasy asset, I believe. Now, there is still kind of question marks around him that he wasn't great at the weekend, but I don't think that the way Arsenal set up and played really favoured him to be good anyway.
Yeah,
I just think that and your argument, I'm sure, will be that the fixtures are pretty useless for the next couple. But for me, I just think he's great value regardless.
Yeah, I think that, as you say, the profile is absolutely there, and you're right. Arteta didn't do a huge amount in helping him. I think he played it's like 3 DMs and 4 centre backs. Proper terrorism. But when you look at his XG, I don't like to buy into XG too much, but against United he had 0.06, and against Liverpool he had 0.16. These are not the XGs that you want for a striker playing for Arsenal. Obviously against Leeds, rattled in 2, but that just makes me doubt. Is he kind of, at least based off this small window? Granted, it's a very tiny window, but this small window of 3 games, okay, it's kind of one really good team, one decent team, and one bad team. And his XG in the games which haven't been against a bad team have been really, really poor. It's not like he's been, getting great chances and scuffing them. The chances haven't been there either. So I'm just a little bit concerned that he will, fall victim, or he is much more susceptible to fall victim to a bad run of fixtures. And that's all it is for me.
Yeah, I think the bad run of fixtures has got a little bit better, given that Nottingham Forest at home doesn't look like a crazy tough fixture now. But yeah, City at home, Newcastle away isn't ideal. From 7 onwards, I don't see a world where we don't have him in our teams, to be honest. But obviously, we're looking at a 5-game week period when we make these lists, so he will presumably rise.
Exactly. And I think, outside of Haaland, everyone between sort of 2 and 6, you will see just boing on my list straight up based on fixtures. And, that's just because João Pedro looks good. Wood I still like Wood, like Mateta. And so a lot of those are just going to rotate around based on fixtures. So that's basically it for me, Gyökeres. I'm just a little bit worried about his XG in bad games. So if he can prove that he's not just that sort of fair weather striker, then, he might be... He'll be able to nail himself, higher up the list on a more permanent basis. Yeah,
that's fair. Completely fair, yeah. That rounds out the forwards, rounds out the premium forwards, rounds out the forwards, rounds out the video. So, like I mentioned, do check out ingenuityfantasy.com. If you've got any questions on our lists or any comments on the video in general, then drop them below. Do hit like, do subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.